mill in the heart of ancient Rome, where power and desire were two sides of the same coin. One name still echoes with scandal 2,000 years later. Valeria Messalina. Her story is one of youth, beauty, and ambition so immense it feels like a myth. And at the heart of that myth is a single, legendary night. 25 men, 1 woman, and a contest that would define her for eternity. To understand the legend, you have to understand the woman, and the glittering, treacherous world she inhabited. Born into the most prestigious family in Rome, a direct descendant of the Emperor Augustus, Messalina's path seemed set. But at just 15, her fate was sealed when she was married off to Claudius, her much older cousin. He was a man mocked for his limp and his stutter, considered a fool by the Roman elite. Their marriage was a cold, political arrangement. She was a beautiful pawn. He was a harmless stepping stone. No one could have predicted what came next. When the mad Emperor Caligula was assassinated in 41 CE, the empire fell into chaos. In the panic, soldiers found Claudius hiding behind a curtain, terrified. In one of history's strangest turns, they didn't kill him, they made him emperor. Suddenly, the man Rome ridiculed was the most powerful person in the world. And Messalina, at just 18 years old, was the Empress. At first, she played the part of the dutiful wife perfectly. She bore Claudius 2 children, smiled at ceremonies, and stayed in the shadows. But while her husband lost himself in paperwork, Messalina discovered a different kind of power, one that flowed not from the Senate, but from the desires of men. The ancient historians tell a shocking tale. By night, they claim, the Empress of Rome would disguise herself, slip out of the palace, and head to the city's most infamous district. Under the alias Lissa, she allegedly worked as a common prostitute, not for money, for something else entirely, the thrill, the danger, the escape from her gilded cage. Her secret life didn't stop there. Back in the palace, she began hosting private banquets, lavish parties where Rome's most powerful figures were drawn into a web of indulgence and fear. Senators and generals who attended became her accomplices, their secrets binding them to her. She turned pleasure into a political weapon, ensuring loyalty through shared corruption. All the while, Claudius remained blissfully, or perhaps willfully, ignorant. But his most trusted advisors, ambitious former slaves named Narcissus and Pallas, were watching. They knew her power threatened their own, and they waited patiently for her to make a fatal mistake. Then came the night that cemented her legend. The writer Pliny the Elder tells us that Messalina challenged Rome's most famous courtesan to a contest. Who could satisfy the most men before sunrise? The Empress, he claims, won easily, taking 25 lovers in a single night. Now, is this literally true? Probably not. But the fact that Romans believed it's true tells you everything. It symbolized their deepest fears about a woman who refused to be controlled, who claimed her own desires, and who outmatched men at their own game. Her enemies didn't have to wait long for her downfall. In 48 CE, Messalina fell deeply in love with the handsome senator Gaius Silius. Their affair was the talk of the city, but they did something that stunned even Rome. While her husband, the emperor, was away, Messalina and Silius held a public wedding ceremony. Was it a desperate act of love, or a blatant attempt to seize the throne? We'll never know. When Claudius finally learned of the marriage, his advisor Narcissus saw his chance. He seized control of the guards and ordered the immediate execution of Silius and everyone who attended the wedding. Messalina fled to a garden estate, where her mother found her and urged her to face death with dignity. But when the soldiers arrived, she was paralyzed with fear. The tribune grew impatient. And so, at just 22 years old, the Empress of Rome was killed by the very empire she had so briefly ruled. When the news reached Claudius, he showed no emotion. He simply asked for more wine and continued his meal. The woman who had dominated his court was erased with chilling speed. But her story was just beginning. Historians, like Tacitus and Suetonius, painted Messalina as the ultimate symbol of lust and corruption. They turned her into a cautionary tale, but their accounts were politically motivated. Claudius's next wife, Agrippina, had every reason to demonize her predecessor to make herself look virtuous. By controlling history, she controlled the narrative. For centuries, Messalina's name was synonymous with depravity. But think about it. Male emperors like Caligula and Nero committed acts of cruelty and violence that far exceeded anything she was accused of.
Dead.
It was Messalina who became the eternal symbol of sexual excess. Why? Because a woman who wielded power through her own desire terrified a patriarchal world. A man could conquer nations and indulge freely. But a woman who chose her own partners had to be destroyed, both in life and in history. We will never know the full truth. Messalina left no diaries, no letters, no defense of her own. We only see her through the eyes of men who either feared her or hated her. Was she reckless and manipulative? Maybe. But she was also a teenager trapped in a system that gave her no freedom. Perhaps her scandalous defiance, however self-destructive, was her only form of rebellion. 2. Her legacy is a powerful reminder that history is often written by the enemies of the defeated. Messalina has been remembered as the Empress of Lust, but maybe it is time to see her as something more complex. A young woman consumed by the impossible contradictions of her world, a world of privilege and captivity, power and ruin. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the dark heart of Rome. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, subscribe for more hidden histories. And let me know in the comments what you think of Messalina's story. See you next time.